Man, hasn't it been a wild week to be a Chicago Bears fan? This past week, we got to see Ryan Poles make his first moves as an NFL GM. First, he signed Larry Ogunjobi, and that really did not turn out for the good, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. But then he signed Tim Patrick, Nicholas Morrow, St. Brown, wide receiver, Brian Pringle, another wide receiver, and now he signed Justin Jones to a deal after the Larry Ogunjobi deal did not go through. And when I saw the news that the Chicago Bears did not sign Larry Ogunjobi, I was surprised. I was shocked. I mean, this came out of left field. I was really excited when the Chicago Bears signed Larry Ogunjobi. I talked about this in my Bengals video, but Larry Ogunjobi was one of the main reasons on why the Bengals got to the Super Bowl. He was a dominant run stopper, and he was starting to become one of the top defensive tackles in the NFL. So to see the Chicago Bears lose out on Larry Ogunjobi because of failed physical, it kind of hurts. But unlike other Chicago Bears fans and other beat reporters, I'm talking to you, David, I really think that this is not on Ryan Poles, because there was no way Ryan Poles could have known that Larry Ogunjobi was going to fail his physical, because when these free agent signings work in the tampering period, what happens is the player signs a deal, or the player intends to sign a deal pending a physical, and that physical only happens like a couple of days after, the player and the team agree upon a contract. And sometimes these physicals, they don't go a player's way, or they don't go through a team's way, and that is exactly what happened. And as an NFL GM, you have to have a backup plan, and Ryan Poles certainly had a backup plan right here. He sent Justin Jones to a deal, a relatively expensive deal. This deal was a 2-year, $12 million deal, but that's a little bit more expensive than I would have paid for someone like Justin Jones. But the good thing is, he provides a ton of potential. He had 19 solo tackles, 3 sacks in his time with the Chargers in 2021, and according to many Chargers fans, he was relatively solid, and I'm going to miss him a lot. This reminds me a lot of the Nicholas Morrow signing. Justin Jones is a relatively solid player on a defensive line, and he's a great run stopper, which is what the Chicago Bears need in a loaded NFC North. And these NFC North teams, they're going to run the ball more. I mean, you're going to see the Packers run more now that they don't have Devontae Adams with Aaron Jones. The Vikings going to run more with Dalvin Cook. Lions are going to run more with their running back. So I like to see this deal. It's just a little bit more expensive than I would have hoped, but I think Justin Jones provides a lot of potential to the Chicago Bears. And another reason on why I like this move was because this move allowed the Chicago Bears to sign another stud defensive end this time, who played for Matt Eberflus, Algonquin Kwandon Muhammad, to a 2-year, $10 million contract. And this guy is also relatively solid. He had one of his best years last year with the Colts. He had 6 sacks. He also had 48 combined tackles. To see the Chicago Bears making these solid deals and bringing in these younger guys, Muhammad is only 26 years old on cheap deals, is something that you would like to see, and something that is a far cry than what we saw in the Ryan Pace era. And speaking of Ryan Pace, Ryan Pace back in 2015 signed Fernell McPhee. And if you guys remember back in the Fernell McPhee days, I was 15? Fernell McPhee was pretty much injured quite a bit. And to see Ryan Poles say, oh my god, hey, this guy failed his physical and we have to go in a different direction, is something that I like to see a lot, because oftentimes you got to see Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, kind of swipe injuries under the rug. You know what I mean? With Tevin Jenkins, with so many injuries, they just swept it under the rug. They just placed him on the PUP list and never talked about it after that. Tariq Cohen is a great example. Ryan Poles decided to cut ties with him because of his injury. So I'm really liking how Ryan Poles is seeing, okay, this guy has an injury past. I don't think it's a good decision for us to go in this direction. Let's move on and let's go in a different direction. And, with the Chicago Bears not going through with the Larry Ogunjobi news, this opens up a lot of cap for the Chicago Bears to sign someone like Jabril Peppers. He's only 26 years old. He's also coming off an injury. But hey, Ryan Post has showed that if these guys coming off injuries are healthy, he will sign them. I mean, most of these players that he has signed are coming off injuries. Nicholas Mora was off an injury. So, we'll have to see what happens with that. But I think in the end, in conclusion, I think the Chicago Bears not signing Larry Ogunjobi is very good because it allowed the Chicago Bears to sign some young started defensive players in Algonquin Mohamed and also in Justin Jones, and this also opens up more cap room for the Chicago Bears to go and sign someone like Jabril Peppers. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to go and smash that like button, hit notifications so you know whenever I post, subscribe if you love more Chicago Bears content like this, and with that all being said, bear down.